I'm usually pretty loud, so I'm not sure if I even need this. Can you hear me pretty well like this, or would you rather have this?
That's very
Okay, I'll use this. I like to wave my hands around, so sometimes it doesn't work properly. I was going to put some money in your happy bucket, but we just moved from Minneapolis a month ago. Whole family, 2 dogs, 2 lizards, a snake, a cat, what else we got? And a turtle. And so I don't have any money left. I'm done. But anyways, thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure. Ranjit sent me an email earlier this week, and we jumped at the opportunity to meet with you and to just talk a little bit about what we do. So here we go. Metrolina Regional Scholars Academy. My first error, you'll tell that I'm new. It was established in 2000, not 1999. So I just figured that out this morning. We are a public charter school for students with high innate ability. This doesn't always mean we have kids that are high achievers. What they come to us with is potential, a lot of potential. And I'll talk a little bit more about our product, our client, our customer in a sense, in terms of who they are and what they're capable of. And I think you'll start seeing some connections there with what all of you do in the business world and in the community in terms of what our kids do. And I really want us to make a connection between our school and the greater Charlotte area in terms of what we're trying to do with partnerships and building partnerships with you. So, next slide, please. Oh, introductions. That is not one of my pets. Give me a few years, maybe. But as Andy has said, already made our introductions, so we'll skip this slide. I mean, who are we? We're a public charter school, and in some cases there is a misnomer about charter schools. I'm brand new, I come from the public sector, the public school sector, so this is fairly new to me as well. But charter schools are publicly funded. They are not a private school, they are not a magnet school, they are funded by the state. And we are also part of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Public Schools. And we don't report to them, we have our own board of directors, but we are a separate charter school within Charlotte-Mecklenburg. We have kids with extreme high aptitude, meaning when we have kids come into our program, they are assessed first. They are given a type of intelligence assessment. We usually use something called the WISC, or the Wechsler Scale of Intelligence for children and adults. These are very difficult assessments. When I lived in Minneapolis, I used to give the assessments to children. It's a 2-hour assessment. And it really assesses every kind of ability that they would have innately. Now, part of why we do this is because over the years, some people have always questioned whether these kids need the extra help. They really do need extra help because they're often ignored by their teachers because we sometimes assume that they have all the answers. They don't. And part of the reason we are in existence is to teach those kids, to guide and facilitate those children through the core curriculum, but also to become highly critical thinkers, enablers, and your future bosses. So, we draw kids from 5 metro counties. They have to go through admissions criteria and testing. We have a committee, admissions committee that goes through all the applications. And we actually have waiting lists. I looked at our kindergarten waiting list right now, and I think we have almost 50 families on it, which to me it's a good thing and it's not so good. Because we have that many kids that need this type of education, but that are waiting. We just don't have facilities to accommodate them. But it's good in the sense that we have a pretty powerful reputation amongst the educational community and amongst parents. And that is a real bonus. All right, I'm going to give this off to Christy, and she'll talk a little bit about the charter school.
Just a little bit about the charter school system in general. As you alluded to, we are a public school. We operate under a written contract with the law of the state, and we're required to meet all of their requirements in terms of standardized testing. But we are governed by our own nonprofit board, so we do have some flexibility. We have flexibility over our class size, the curriculum, and the discipline code, that sort of thing. But where we also differ is we are a nonprofit organization, so we can solicit donations from private and public sectors in order to meet our budget. We do receive state and county funding, but we don't receive the funding that most public schools do, like for the school bus or for buildings, advanced degrees for any of our teachers. We unfortunately don't receive any of that. So it's on us as a school to go ahead and figure out our difference where we need to meet there, which is where I come in as the development director. This just shows here historically how we achieve our revenue. So we do get a good bit of the federal and state funding, but a quarter of the annual operating budget that we have each year is from private donations. And I have been at the school since April, and prior to me, there was no paid employee at the school doing this. So it's been completely volunteer driven by our parents. They're incredibly involved, incredibly dedicated to seeing the future of this school be sustained. And part of the reason I took the job to begin with, because I couldn't believe how dedicated and happy everyone were to be at the school and to have their children there. So the school in 2000 started with 60 students, and we've grown now to 350 over the past 12 years. We're starting our 13th year, and we do have a wait list every year. We're totally culturally diverse. We have all socioeconomic backgrounds, and to kind of toot our own horns a little bit, we were awarded the 2011-2012 National Blue Ribbon School by the U.S. Department of Education, which is pretty difficult to get, so we're really excited about that. We have 99% plus performance on EOG testing since 2003. What's not on there? Oh, sorry.
EOG means end of grade.
We also test to assess out of grade level achievement with the expectation that all of our students test high at one grade level above where they're actually at. So we do that on our own. And something that I thought was phenomenal, we found out recently that our 7th graders took the SAT this past year. So the SAT to get into college admissions, and they achieved a mean score of 1540 as 7th graders. So yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. And we've also been awarded the the North Carolina School of Excellence since 2004, every single year since then.
Okay, now that we're all blown away, I'll just put a little story on the inside. Last year I did a project with our highly gifted kids in Minnesota. And they were grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. We did something called 21st Century Skills and Learning. I gave them 2 full weeks of no core curriculum and let them explore passion. The stuff that they came up with blew everyone's socks off. One student, because his grandfather had Alzheimer's, developed a helmet that would alert his grandfather anytime he needed something. It would alert, it was wired to his brain, so it would alert him when he needed to eat, when he needed to take his pills, when he needed to, because his grandfather was forgetting everything. Another did a project with antimatter. He started speaking to me about his project, and he lost me within 3 minutes. Incredible potential that these kids have, and I think that's why we're here today. So why are these kids at risk? I think they're at risk, number one, because we are in an era of what we call the NCLB, which is the Bush Foundation put in No Child Left Behind. And the approach for No Child Left Behind is a valiant one. It is making sure that all our children are proficient. What we have found, the Fordham Institute and a few others have done studies, they have found that our kids at the top end were not getting any teaching. They were being left behind in a sense. So they were trying to make their own way. They're not mature enough to make their own way. What we find a lot with gifted children is their social and emotional behaviors are much below their actual brain development. So they appear like an adult when they talk to you, but they act like a kid their own age. So it's a real tough dilemma for them in some cases. They're hard time making friends. They're bullied a lot. And that's just half the story. That's the tip of the iceberg. Common Core standards that we have to meet and are generally taught in all public schools are not sufficient enough for our kids. Many of them, as you said, as Christy said, 7th graders scoring that high in an SAT means they're so far above the Common Core curriculum that they sit and wait. In average, a gifted child in a public school sits and waits for about half his school year. Meaning they sit there and they already know the stuff and there's no engagement. We are losing a lot of potential there. Teacher preparation. Most universities and teachers' college have no coursework on how to work with this type of child. So teachers come in unprepared. The other piece is we've had plenty of studies where new teachers, pre-service teachers, have negative attitudes toward these kids because they think they're know-it-alls. So they deliberately do not teach them. So this is why Metrolina is here, so we can fill that void. The era of egalitarianism is pretty prevalent, and quite honestly, we're not all the same. We all have different potentials. When we treat our sports stars like heroes, but our academic stars, we do not treat them like heroes in part of what we do. Sorry, I'm getting a little dry here. So why does it matter? I've worked a lot with the 21st Century Skills group out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Ian Jukes, Lee Crockett, and those folks. And what we're trying to do at Metrolina is prepare our kids for a different world. Many studies and many folks have talked about the fact that when our kids graduate in 2020 and 2021, the whole job market will be completely different than it is today. And we have no idea in terms of what they will be facing in the future. So what ends up happening? The workforce has to evolve, meaning our education has to evolve. And this is what we're trying to do at Metrolina. The global competition for jobs. It was estimated, I was just doing a lot of research this morning so I could bring some late breaking news to you. It's not so late and breaking, but in a sense, China and India are graduating 3 to 4 times as many engineers as we are. 3 to 4 as many times as IT folks. So the competition for jobs is going to go like this. Now, what is the differentiator? What can we do, because our kids are facing steep odds, to make them appear different, appear better? Well, this is what we call 21st century fluencies. It is not just about reading, math, arithmetic, language arts. It's not about that anymore. Do we teach that? Yes, we do. That's our common core. But we have embedded what we call 21st century skills into our curriculum that we believe will enable our students to be competitive with the top graduates in the entire world. That means information fluency. If I were to Google something, how quickly would I find out what the 50 states are, their capitals, or some market analysis on a new business in Charlotte? That information comes to me instantly. How I can disseminate that information, analyze it, use it in different ways is what is not taught. That critical thinking and that analytics. And this is what we're trying to do. What we found with a lot of the graduates coming out of other countries is they're very good at test taking. They outscore some tests. But when it comes to throwing a curveball at them and thinking out of the box and it's something that's new, a new development or a kink in the armor in a plan, for instance, they're lost. So they're very good at doing well in math and science, but how they apply that is our differentiator. We're trying to teach our kids both to understand it, but also to apply it. So you'll see the fluencies, information fluency, analyzing billions of pieces of information that are coming at them on a daily basis. Solution fluency, finding solutions to problems, discovering, defining, designing, delivering, debriefing, being able to communicate, like we're doing today. Creative fluency, using that creative part of our brain. That's Christy's job. She has to be very creative in coming up with new products. We are rebranding, we're going to relogo Metrolina because I've only been here a month and I've talked to a number of people that have no idea who we are. And we've been here 13 years. That's creative thinking, creative design, going out there, bringing us to the community so that we can partnership. And if we don't know who we are, that's impossible. So that creative thinking, we're embedding that. Media fluency, interpretation of digital products. It's a digital world they live in. My kids are on Xbox, they're on Twitter, they're on Google, they're on you name it. They're not spending as much time face-to-face with folks as they are in front of their computers. We have to understand that, but we have to teach them both. We have to teach them both real relationship building, but also digital relationship building, in terms of how they can navigate that world that they're going to be part of. And then collaboration. I don't know that many more jobs that exist anymore where you're sitting at a computer by yourself all day, every day. There's a lot of collaboration. When you look at our way we assess our kids sit at a desk, we're given a state assessment, which is generally poorly written. It's more confusing than it is helpful to us. But they sit there and they take the test by themselves with no help. This is the way we run schools, in a factory model approach. They get to the real world and they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to collaborate with their business partner, with that person in India that they need to collaborate on a project with. So we are also teaching them collaboration skills, how they can interact with each other and with strangers. What I don't have here is cultural literacy, another thing that we teach, because in a global market, they'll be dealing with a lot of different people with a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different customs and manners. So how do we navigate that world? We have Chinese at our school. We teach Chinese, we teach Spanish. That is also part of getting ready for 21st century literacy, because our kids will have to be speaking another language. One of the things that in Europe they have such a big advantage over us is most Europeans can speak English and their native tongue, and maybe even another one. And that is a real advantage. We have to be competitive. So, where does that bring us and in this room together? What we're trying to do is a number of things. I would really love for us to have business folks come in and mentor our kids. Be mentors, have that mentor-mentee relationship. I would also love for businesses to come in and set up a virtual workplace where our kids can actually go in and experience and get a taste of what they might want to do 5 or 6 years down the road. New ideas, designs. We have some plans for future growth. We are only K-8 right now, and sometimes that's a stumbling block for industry, for businesses, because the kids are only 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. One of our plans is eventually to build a high school at some point. We're not ready yet, but we will get there along the way. But I really want to get our kids an understanding of who they are within their community, not just as students, but as partners, and working with all of you. The other pieces, and I'm going to let Christy talk about this a little bit more, but we really are under budgeted in a sense. We don't get a ton of money. We use a lot of resources over and over and over again. And I know this is the selfish part of the presentation, but that is part of our need as well. So.
I always get handed the mic when we're talking about money.
Yes.
It's usually what happens. But the ultimate goal, I think, for the school too, in growing to a high school, is to share the curriculum that we have and expand it across the state and across the country. A lot of people don't know about us because the first 10 years we existed, the major focus of the school was to secure an actual location. We have our own building now. We didn't for many years. This will be our 3rd year of the building that we're in. But also because they were focused on building a curriculum standard for educating gifted children. They never had that before. So now that we have all of that, we're ready for people to know about us and to be involved. And we need buy-in from the community and support from the community to be able to go out to other cities around here and to other states to say, look at the product that we have and look at what it's done for the Charlotte community and what it can do for you as well. And really, I mean, that comes down to, an unrestricted gift, a donation, but also sponsoring certain events that we have. When we do science fairs, sometimes a lot of companies will donate their time to be the judges. And that's just as great too. Same with labs, technology, instructional material, that sort of thing. Anything that we can say, we've got a great working relationship with the companies that are here. I think it's kind of a mutually beneficial relationship for us. So I think that covers it.
And I would just want to extend an invitation, if you ever are interested in coming to visit our building, our schools, to see what's going on. I encourage visitors, I encourage folks to come in and actually sit down with the kids, talk to the kids, see what they're doing, what we're all about, talk to the teachers. Because quite honestly, we're not the ones on the front line, it's the teachers and the kids. And that's where the learning happens. So I would really express or extend that invitation to you, and we'd welcome any visitors. So thank you. Our contacts, well, they're there, are coming up. Please feel free to call or send an email, and we look forward to building a relationship with you. Thank you.
Question. Could you tell us how you hire, pay, and evaluate the teachers, and how that may be different from what the public school system does?
How we hire and evaluate our teachers, it's a little bit different. When we hire, I look for a level of experience. I also look for a level of experience in terms of working with these type of children. One of the characteristics that's very common with gifted kids is they're extremely intense. And sometimes that intensity goes offline. And for teachers to have that understanding and the capability to redirect kids, and also to actually be able to step back. I don't expect my teachers to sit there and be the sage on the stage and be preaching to the kids all day long. They have to be the guides, because the kids are the ones doing the learning, and the kids are driving the instruction in a sense. We follow our standards, our essential learnings, but that's what I look for in teachers, is to be able to teach, but also to be able to guide and facilitate, and on occasion be that go-to person, that trustful person when they are having some issues. So it's a lot of characteristics that a teacher has to be successful in our program. Now, in terms of our teacher evaluation, we are required by the state to do a certain amount of evaluation. I do a lot more. I generally go into teachers' classrooms 10 to 15 times a year. And part of that is I want to see a trend of learning, and I want to see a trend of teacher learning. But I evaluate them on numerous things, all the way from teacher preparation to how they approach the classroom, to classroom management, to instruction, to differentiation, to formative assessment, meaning that I want my teachers to constantly be assessing their kids for growth. Because if you leave those kids alone for a week, they may be over here. So we constantly formatively assess our students and their growth in all those core areas, so that our teachers understand where our kids are at and where they need to go next. So my teacher evaluation plan is pretty heavy. Now, is it burdensome? It might be for some, but I really think that we need to keep our teachers on task and honest in terms of their instruction. I know it's not the same as the public school system, but that's just the way I do things. I really want to make sure that we're professional. I want to make sure that teachers are professionals, and that we are delivering our parents a product of success, that those kids can go out into the world and be successful, not only in high school, but in college and then beyond. Does that satisfy your answer?
What do you have to pay them according to the state?
We pay them according to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg scale, salary scale.
And you can increase their pay based on your...
The board can. The board generally gives a 1% increase per year, but it's based on their experience coming in, how many years they've been teaching, as well as how many degrees they have, so their level of education. So there's ladders in terms of how they increase their instruction, and in some cases it doesn't work out and we have to get rid of them too. But the board directs all that in terms of pay. But we have to be competitive with Charlotte-Mecklenburg, otherwise we won't get teachers. And we pay actually a little bit extra just for the fact that we need good teachers. We need the best teachers, and that's a real challenge. So, yes, Deborah.
About how much does it cost per student per year? Education.
Oh boy, that's a loaded one. Part of it depends on what grade level they're in. To educate a middle school student with science labs and for them to get the opportunities that they need to really be investigating and diving into curriculum is going to cost more than it does for a kindergarten student. In general, I'm not sure about the school because I'm still very new, but our average cost per student was between $7,000 and $8,000 per year. But that was in Minnesota, so things are a little different.
It's the same here, but all the funding, other than the donations, comes from the state. So they're funded at the same level as the county. They're funded county and state funding and some national funding.
Yes.
But it's the same as the public schools, except they don't get money.
We don't get money for transportation, we don't get money for buildings and grounds, for food. There's a lot of money that we don't get that our public school gets. On average, our parents donate about $500,000 a year out of their own pockets. And that's barely keeping us running. We have about a $3 million budget and we're scraping. So part of I love to have a counselor, a guidance counselor in our building, but we just don't have the money for it. I'd like to increase our technology. We are behind in technology. We're not even electronically grading and reporting. We're not doing a lot of things we're not doing electronically that would get us up to speed. But that stuff costs money. It really does. So, yes. Yes. We actually don't have a discipline issue. It is very, very rare. I think Dr. Piney told me, who's the outgoing director, that in the 12 years that she's been there, she's maybe had 2 suspensions. Our kids are really self-motivated. We have 80% parent participation in terms of, not parent participation, but parent families with both parents. We have huge parent support. And then we have 100% participation in terms of families volunteering time. So we have a system in terms of that there's a lot of eyes, number one. Number two, the way we set up our curriculum and the way we teach is always engaging kids in learning. When kids are engaged in learning, they are not disciplinary issues. They become disciplinary issues when they are bored, when they're waiting for the next thing. Oh, I know half that curriculum. What am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to start hitting my neighbor with a ruler. That happens, especially in middle school. Middle school kids have a big task. They got a lot of hormones going on, and they have to pay attention. So we have to keep them engaged. If my staff cannot keep kids engaged, they won't be around very long. So in terms of discipline, we've had very few issues. Yes.
Comment a little on 2 things. One, the intellectual diversity, and well, cultural diversity, we've done that, but the intellectual diversity in the student population. 1 and 2 are these kids. How are their high school selections made, if they are made by the university?
The high school selections are made by the families. So once they get through 8th grade with us, they choose where they want to go. Generally, some of them go back to their district high school.
No geographical limits.
No. I'm pretty sure about that. I'm not the authority yet on where they're actually going. We have, one of the things I want to do in the future is start surveying our kids as they get through our program and beyond. I want to know how they did in high school. I want to know how they did in college. I want to know everything we need to know about our graduates so that we can. Part of the reason for us to build a high school is we have heard reports of our kids really struggling once they get to a public system. Part of our problem also is our kids are doing public or high school level work in 7th and 8th grade, and our public school, high school are having problems placing our kids because they may come in with 11th grade language arts already, so where do you start? So that's been a bit of an issue too. In terms of the intellectual diversity, we do have our minimal cutoff is at 145. Now, if you take the bell curve, which I know is very controversial, it kind of goes like this: average is 100, and then it keeps going. And there's a standard deviation is 15 points, so 115, 130, 145. So our kids are generally 3 standard deviations above what you would have in a normal learner. Generally, that means they learn and process information 2 to 3 times faster, maybe 4 times faster than an average brain. Now, that doesn't mean they're better. It just means that's how their brain works. And that's how their brain was born to work. The latest neuroscience, I work with a gal in California, and she's a neurologist. And all her recent studies have just been with gifted kids and their brain development. And she has shown some remarkable things in terms of how their brains are developing, even at age 2, are much more developed in terms of their ability to take in information, to not regurgitate, but to use that information at 2 years old already. So we have kids coming into our school that at 4 years old have been reading and writing and doing math, doing multiplication. I can tell you many stories, but I remember one story of a 3-year-old who had neighbors that were, one was German and one was Vietnamese, and they were just a regular English-speaking family. By the age of 4, that child being with those neighbors had learned to speak Vietnamese and German fluently. So their brain is like a sponge, but it has to be guided. I mean, what we find is a lot of our kids have misunderstandings. They take all this information, they have all these heavy interests, but they've taken so much information, some of it is wrong. So a part of our job is to correct it, to guide those brains. Now, in terms of diversity, we have kids that are below 145, that are real high achievers. We also have kids that may be another 2 or 3 standard deviations beyond that. The highest student I ever worked with was a 180 student, and he is currently going to go into 3rd grade, and he was doing pre-calculus already at 3rd grade. And that poses a lot of issues if you're a 2nd, 3rd grade teacher, just in terms of getting material. And then I had another one who was in the 170 range, who was the one that was studying antimatter, and he was a 5th grader. And he was working with some of the scientists and what they call a far return project, where there's a base in Minnesota. So it's this thing that's going on in France right now. What do we call it? The antimatter? The God protocol, I think it's what they call it. But he did a big research project, and he was working with these people. So in terms of potential, our kids have so much potential. And that's why I really want to get us into the community so that we can develop that potential in different ways and really partnership with folks in the community. I'm sorry, we are probably out of time.
One more. You have one location?
We have one location.
And where is it? Is it on
We are
Road?
Highway 77 in Tavola.
Right.
77 Center Drive is a business park, and we are actually in a business park. Nice trees and everything, but the other thing that we do need is we don't have fields. And I believe healthy mind, healthy body is really good for these kids as well. So I'm going to stop here because I know Richard's looking at me funny. So. But anyways, thank you so much again for having us, and thanks for the wonderful meal. And I hope to see you and hear from you soon.